And Donald Trump on the Savage Nation. President Trump, what a great honor. Happy birthday. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. It's good to be with you again.
You know, President Trump, many fiscal conservatives have criticized your economic policy of bailing out mega corporations because of the steep job losses due to the coronavirus shutdowns. They don't understand business. But this strategy now seems to be working. Jobs are way up, even among minorities. Can you tell the Savage Nation about the latest jobs report, which is so important?
Well, I actually appreciate that question because we had the all-time in history number one increase in jobs number. Millions and millions of jobs coming back. We're opening up the country. It's doing well. We had to close it, Michael, because we would have lost, millions more. We would have lost possibly 2.5, 3 million people, and if we didn't do what we did, so we did the right thing.
Yeah, well, so my own son, who's a business genius, and you know him, I complained about bailing out the big companies. He said, "Don't you understand? By saving them, he's saving jobs."
Saving jobs, and plus you don't want to lose the big companies. I mean, they're making great product. They're selling the product all over. But, like the airlines, we had to bail out the airlines. A rough business, but a very important business for our country. But the job numbers came back, and you saw them announced a week ago, the highest number ever announced, and nobody got it. Wall Street, they had 119 analysts. Not one analyst predicted it right, which makes me feel good. So the job...
Well, it's the same like the pollsters who were saying, Trump's down, Biden's up. They gave him an eye job. Suddenly they wheeled him out of the basement. They're making him look like he is, and he's a hologram. But did you know Politico came out this morning, President Trump, and said that they're seeing your reelection through a landslide?
Well, I feel that it's very interesting. I saw that, and I'm honored by that. And I guess Michael Moore said the same thing, or Michael Moore made a statement that he won, he's going to win again, Well, if I don't win, the country's going to be in big trouble because I see what's going on with the party, whether it's Seattle or these marches or the rioting and the looting, all of the things. This country would be in such trouble. I will say this. I've never seen spirit, not even last time, not even in 2016, because then they didn't really know. They didn't know exactly, I didn't do it yet politically. And now I've done it with the tax cuts, the regulation cuts, the rebuilding of the military, Space Force, all of the things that we've done. And they said, I've never seen such spirit. We went up to Maine last week, and I won half of Maine. It's actually 2 votes. But I won half of Maine and last time. I have never seen, the crowds were from the plane to the plant that we opened up. We opened up a beautiful plant for swabs. And I went, and you had to see the crowds. It was like the landing of a great hero on Broadway in the old days. It's incredible.
Here's something we did today, President Trump. You've appointed 2 Supreme Court justices, 51 U.S. Court of Appeals judges, 143 U.S. District judges, 196 total confirmed, 46 yet to be confirmed. People don't realize that your legacy will live for the next 20 to 30 years in the courts, which really matter. And all you're trying to do is right the ship, because a bird needs 2 wings to fly. It's been flapping too far to the left for too long, and you're trying to make that bird fly straight, which I really love. But I know the time is so limited. Everyone's screaming about the riots in Seattle. They're frightened. And what do you think? I hate this defund the police movement. I say give them more money and better training. We need more police, not fewer police. What do you think?
Well, I think you said it better than anybody could say it. No, we're not going to defund the police. We're going to give more money. We're going to make sure we have good policemen and women in there, because obviously some of the things that we saw over the last few weeks are not acceptable to you, to me, to anybody. But, the vast, vast majority of these people are extraordinary people, and they can do 1,000 good acts and 1 bad one, and the one that is played, because that's the way it is, and that's the way life is, actually. I'm not blaming anybody, but the one that's played is the bad act, and then everybody sort of brushes the entire force as being that way, and it's not that way. The police, the law enforcement have done an incredible job. We had a record number this year in terms of crime being down, a record. We had a phenomenal year in terms of crime. And frankly, if we did the job, if the police were allowed to do their job in a place like Chicago, you take a look at what's going on in Chicago. If they were allowed to do the job, they'd solve that problem very quickly and very easily. But they're prohibited from doing their job. No, but we want, I think you said it so beautifully, we want a lot of money for our police. They've got to do their job. They have to be great trained. If there's a bad one in there, you got to get him or her out fast. But they have to be able to do their job, and they can't be looking over their shoulder, Michael, and that's what you mean.
Terrible, right, because the bad guys will always shoot first.
Right.
President Trump, this is a really big one, this voter fraud thing. The Dems, like Governor Newsom, are pushing for all mail-in ballots. He was stopped temporarily by a federal judge, actually by a judge in Northern California. We're terrified of the illegal aliens voting, the Democrats voting 4 or 5 times. Is there anything that your administration is doing to prevent voter fraud?
Well, we're suing, and we're filing another big lawsuit, I think, on Friday, and I think we have a good case. Newsom announced that he's sending out millions and millions of mail-in, what's called mail-in ballots. And you say, who are they sending these to? And maybe who aren't. Let's say you take a Republican district, and maybe those ballots don't get sent there, okay? This is the craziest thing. This will be a rigged election if they're allowed to do it. We're like crazy. If you take a look, we've won the last 4 elections. We won in Wisconsin. We won in North Carolina. We won 2. You know that? Big one. We won a very big one in California, first time in 22 years. But we're fighting mail-in ballots. And in those cases, they had a lot of mail-in ballots, which is incredible. But the chance of theft, where they steal them, they hold up mailmen, they take them out of mailboxes, they print them fraudulently. And I'll just tell you this one story because it happened over the weekend. The person I know very well, a friend of mine, his son passed away 7 years ago. Beautiful, great son, and he's a great gentleman. And he said, "Sir, you're right about mail-in ballots. We just received a ballot in the name of my son, and he died 7 years ago."
Oh, boy.
And this is going to happen. And that, let's say, was a legitimate mistake. But these mistakes are made by the millions. You go to a voting booth and vote, unless you're an absentee, in which case they have to go through a whole process in order to vote. They have to go through a very strict process.
Right.
The equivalent of going to a voting machine, or maybe even sometimes better.
Yes.
We have to stop that, and we have to stop illegal voting.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest risk I have, and the biggest risk, frankly, that the Republican Party has is mail-in ballots. It's a very big risk.
Well, I'm glad that you're suing on behalf of the sanctity of the ballot box. President Trump, debt, the budget, left-wing riots are freaking Americans out right now. We're all afraid of the huge budget deficit, and many people are saying to me, Michael, please ask President Trump to not bail out California, not bail out New York. Let them pay for their own failed policies and high taxation. Do you intend to bail out all states, some states, or no states after the COVID disaster?
No. What we want to do is do something with respect to COVID, because they did really, a lot of the states did, but we're not doing what they call as bailout. A bailout is where a state like Illinois has been run badly for years and still is badly run. And we're supposed to bail them out for all of those years of abuse and all of those years of bad management. No, we're not doing that at all. We'll do something for COVID. And, look, they've lost a substantial amount. We'll do something for COVID. Now, at some point, we're going to get this back to a level, you see, with the jobs numbers and all of the things. There are a lot of positive things happening. And by the way, very positive also on vaccines and therapeutics and cures. We're doing tremendous. I think you're going to see numbers a lot earlier. I think you'll see a conclusion to that a lot sooner than people think, a lot sooner. And I meet with people. I meet with the scientists. I meet with the people that are doing this stuff. They're really doing well. They're really, we're doing testing, actually. We've started testing. And nobody thought that would happen for a long time. So I think but even without that, at some point this stuff goes away. And it's going away. Our numbers are much lower now. We'll have hot spots, and we put out the hot spot. We'll never close the country. What we did was so right, and then right now we're doing it properly. But you're going to have also therapeutics and vaccines coming out, and I think they're going to come out much, much sooner rather than later, Michael.
Well, look, Donald, you know that I have a training in epidemiology. I've studied diseases for years, and they so misread the data on this from the beginning, misled the people. This guy Ferguson from England, all his data was wrong.
Yep.
Based on that, they closed the whole world down, and they don't even admit their mistakes. Now Cuomo's screaming he's going to shut down Manhattan and the Hamptons again because they're not listening to him. Are you listening to craziness? But I want to ask you one last question.
Wanting to do that for politics, for political.
Of the power madness.
Yeah, well, and he'd like to see that for November, because if you can do that till November, the economy won't advance as much as I say it should advance, because we're really advancing rapidly with jobs and everything else, much further along than people would. You know, I built the greatest economy during my administration in the history of the world. We never had better numbers. Job numbers for African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, and now all of a sudden we had to turn it off. We did the right thing. We saved millions of lives, and now we turn it back on. Somebody like Cuomo may be doing that for political reasons, because the comeback would not be as great, but it's going to be a great comeback regardless.
President Trump, everything that you do seems to be an uphill battle with the left, and sometimes even your own party is against you. You know, in a general way, did you expect this much resistance when you were first planning on becoming president? No.
First of all, I thought success. I knew I was going to be successful, and no president's ever done what I've done in the first 3.5 years. Whether you look at all of the taxes, all of the rebuilding of the military, look at what we've done with choice for the vets. We got choice approved and accountability approved. But we got choice approved where the vets can go see a doctor now. We pay for the doctor as opposed to waiting in line for 2 months. I mean, the vet stores, you don't hear about the vets. You know, I just heard the approval rating for the VA is up 40% from what it was in the old days of your friend Obama.
My friend. Yeah, my good friend Obama. I really love that presidency.
No, and I have to do that to you. But you know what? Up 40%. The VA is running well. It's all running well. Then we got hit by the Chinese sent us a little gift, and we're not going to forget it. That should never have happened. They should have contained it. They could have contained it. They did contain it for the rest of China, but they didn't contain it for the rest of the world, including Europe and the United States. So not a good thing, but we've got it back on track, and it's going fast. It's going faster than people would have thought.
You know, you mentioned China. They colluded with WHO to cover up the pandemic at a time when we had a chance to stop it if they had only disclosed it. Now, China also controls much of our pharmaceutical supply.
Yeah.
Our farmland is being bought up by Chinese. Our universities are rampant with spies from China. What do you think needs to be done about China, and what actions is your administration thinking of taking or taking?
Well, I've already done a lot of it. You know that. We've taken in billions and billions of dollars in taxes. We never took in 10 cents. I've given billions to the farmers who were hurt because they were targeted by China. And I've given the difference. It was 16 billion and it was 12 billion. And I've given that money over in the form of taxes that we took in from China, and the rest went into our treasury, which was many times that amount. So the farmers were very happy with what's happening. And we're doing things that have been very strong. In addition, I made a trade deal with China, which frankly, so far they're living up to, which is, some people are surprised by that, but they're living up. They're buying a lot of stuff. But the day we got hit with this COVID, or whatever you want to call it, a lot of different names. People call it by many different names, some of them very insulting to China. But the day we got hit with this disease, my whole feeling felt, the ink wasn't even dry on this trade deal. It was a great deal, $250 billion they're supposed to put into our country a year. The day that came in, I was very happy. And then when I heard that the flu, the virus, was coming in, something coming in, sir, the plague is coming in from China, I felt very much different about the deal that we had made, which was a great deal, because we've never had a deal with China. But China was ripping off this country $530 billion a year. Think of it, $530 billion a year, ripping us off for years. I got elected because of, that was one of the, and not only China, everybody else also. And we've renegotiated a lot of those deals, Michael. We've made them from bad deals to great deals. South Korea is an example where we had a horrible deal that was supposed to create jobs, and we lost jobs with it. We've renegotiated those deals. We've done a lot of that. But we made this great deal with China, but I feel differently about it now since we got hit with their with their present.
President Trump, before you go, I just want to say this for myself and all my listeners. We know that America's survival hangs in the balance. We make no bones about the fact that it's either you or total chaos in this country. Biden is a front man for the most extremist, left-wing fanatics I've ever seen in my lifetime. I don't mind a decent liberal. I grew up with them. I understand them. These people, President Trump, are not liberals. You know that better than I do.
Yep.
These people are fanatics.
Yep.
They would destroy everything, not only that you created, but that all of our ancestors created in this country. And that is why I said before you came on the show, I back you 100%, and I will right through the election. And I want to thank you very much for putting up with the crap you've had to put up with. Every man I've talked to said, why doesn't he just give the keys back and walk away? They couldn't take what you've taken.
Well, it's an honor that you say that, and you were my friend from the beginning, and you were there long before people thought I'd win, and right from the escalator ride down, if you remember those conversations. And you really understand what's going on. You have a lot of street smarts, common sense, and just smart. But I will say this. It's a disgrace what's going on. And when you see Seattle being taken, we're not talking about, a local town. We're talking about a great city.
President Trump, I could listen to you for another hour. The guys are screaming at me that you've got to go. And that I guess I've got to say, I pray to God that you come back again on the Savage Nation.